Balaam is an odd prophet, isn't he? But Israel is an odd people. This is like Balaam the odd prophet, Israel the odd people, you know. When you think about that, it makes an interesting thought. So Balak sends these messengers to Balaam, and, you know, it's like, come curse these people so I can drive them out, because I can't do it unless you curse them. And so the elders of Moab, they go to Midian, they got their money with them, they know how much it's going to take, and they go and find Balaam over there, and they give him the message. And he says, you know what, spend the night here. I've got to pray about this. Let me see what Yahweh has to say. And so all these princes, now notice that he didn't just send somebody. He didn't just call an Uber driver to take the money over there, okay? He's like, you know, here, I'm going to send some princes so this guy understands we're serious, and he knows who I am, that I'm the king sending princes, you know, so that way he'll listen to me. I'm important. You know, he should know that. And so they spend the night there. And it says God came to Balaam, and this is during the night. He's praying, and Lord shows up to him. He's like, who are these people? By the way, if the Lord ever asks you something like that, stop and think, doesn't he know? Like, yes, he knows. The real question is, do you know who these people are? What are you doing with these people? What are you doing? You know, it's like, what are you doing? And it's almost like Balaam will just turn around, these people? Oh, okay, well, they're, you know, it's like he hasn't a clue. You know, and we have that same problem sometimes when we get challenged on something. Do we stop and think, what am I doing? And I think really that's what the Lord's trying to get him to do. He's trying to get him, it's not like he doesn't know. He's like, what are you doing? You know, what are you doing? But he goes on and tells him anyway, here's the whole story. I'll tell you how they got here. And his whole thing was, you know, can I go with them? I mean, they want to know if I can go with them. Is it okay if I go with them? And he's like, no, you can't go with them. You know, realize what's going on. You shall not go with them. You shall not curse these people because they are blessed. Okay? And so, why are they blessed? When were they blessed? You know, he's talking about Israel. What blessing is he talking about specifically? I thought you'd never ask. In Genesis 12, it's the blessing of Abraham. He's telling the offsprings, like, you know, I'm going to make your descendants great. They're not only going to be a blessing, they're not only going to be blessed, they're going to be a blessing. And that's really key for us when we understand that we're Israel. We're not supposed to just, I'm Israel, I'm blessed. Okay, that's half the equation. The other half of the equation, are you being a blessing?
That's right.
That was a blessing. You know, you were able to be a blessing. How often have we been a blessing? Or do we want to just sit and like a kid and like just collect blessings?
That's right.
Israel's called to be a blessing. Okay? I will bless it goes further than that. And so once we step into that and we're blessed in being a blessing, you really can't do a whole lot of blessing until you're blessed, right? If you're cursed, just like, let me give you some of what new, don't give me what you've got. Take that somewhere else. I've got enough stuff hanging around here. Okay? But once you're a blessing, people want to be around you. They want your blessing. And so what we're supposed to give them is blessing. By the way, not curses, not a hammer, not, okay, come here, I'll fix you. That's not being a blessing, you know. We're supposed to bless them. I'll bless those, and then it goes to the next step. I'll bless those that bless you. So now the people that bless us get blessed. And this, you see how this grows? If we step into it, it grows and grows and grows and grows, and it becomes a picture of blessing. Everybody involved, ultimately, till all the families of the earth are blessed by Yeshua the Messiah coming, of course. So it's a huge blessing. And Paul talks about that, and he's actually talking, remember, he's talking about Israel to the Romans, who are Gentiles, right? And they're trying to figure this whole thing out, how this works. And he says, as to the good news, as to the gospel, natural Israel is actually an enemy to the gospel for your sake because they're not accepting it. But as regard to the election, okay, through Abraham, the blessings, they are beloved for the sake of their forefathers. Yes, they're not walking in blessings at this moment. That doesn't mean that, you know, and he goes this whole thing. God hasn't cast them off because the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable. Okay, so if he gives you gifts and he gives you a calling and nothing ever came of it, all that means is he's like, okay, you're on the wrong side of the Jordan. How long are we going to stay here? It's not going anywhere. He's just waiting for you to learn to trust him, waiting for you to put self down, waiting for you to trust him and step forward in that thing that he's called you to. It's like, why are you here? You're not here randomly. This is not a random place. This is a blue roof on top of the hill. It's not a random place, okay? You had to come uphill no matter, it's like Jerusalem, no matter what direction you came from, you went up, you came uphill. Good thing you weren't walking. So Balaam rose early in the morning and says to the princes, Yahweh said, I can't go, and he's like, I'm not going. So they go back to Balak the king, and it's like, Balaam refuses, he's not coming. And of course, what's going to happen there is Balak, this king, is like, oh, I guess I shouldn't have just sent princes. I should have sent, more important entourage. And it's like sending somebody to an international meeting of some kind. It's like, I should have upped the ante. We're going to send more money. We're going to send them more important people with, nicer suits and more eloquent speech. And that way it'll work, right? No, it's not going to work. And so it says that God came to Balaam at night and said to him, if these men, they came back, so they go through this whole thing, and here they come again with a bigger entourage. They show up, more money, more fancy, fancy carriages, gold-plated carriages, whatever, gold-plated horses, And he says, if they come to call you, rise and go, but do only what I tell you. Now, the story starts to get weird here, okay? And part of it is we need to understand who this guy is. So let's first understand who Balaam is, okay? It matters. This is where he's from. It says he's a Mesopotamian. So he's from in Mesopotamia. If we look where that is, look on the map there where that is. That's the modern Iraq, Syria, Lebanon. All the enemies of Israel are from that area. This is where he's from. And so even though Balaam is a prophet, you can't help to wonder, why is he so eager to participate in cursing Israel? Is he a friend or a foe? I mean, he's ready to do it, right? It's like, okay, well, let me just double check with the boss and make sure it's okay because I want the money. There's not a whole lot. There's not any thought of whose side he's on almost. It's like he's totally being run and moved by the flesh, by money. Moab, of course, Moab and Ammon and Moab are in modern day Jordan. Jordan continually has a sort of tenuous relationship with Israel. They are happy when things are peaceful, but when all the neighboring Islamic countries get together and say, let's attack Israel, Jordan says, okay, we're in, So that, they've been at war many times. Jordan, Moab, is officially in charge of the Temple Mount today. Creates, and in reality, Jordan ends up acting much like Balaam, because you never know, as custodians of the Temple Mount, whether they're going to bless Israel or curse Israel. You never know. I mean, whichever way the political winds are blowing, that's what they seem to be ready to do. And so that sort of reminds me of who they are. Are they going to bless Israel or are they going to curse Israel? But I think if they could find a prophet that would curse Israel, that they would do it. Just like back then, I think they would do it. So there's really nothing new in the Middle East. When you see it, it's like these same people, same stories keep happening. Balaam rises early in the morning, saddles his donkey, and he goes with the princes. Now, first of all, I find it interesting to say that it never says if they showed up. Yahweh was very specific. He said, if they show up calling you, and it never mentions that. He just gets up and saddles his donkey and he's off. But God's anger is kindled because he went, and the angel of Yahweh took his stand in the way as an adversary. Now he was riding on the donkey and his two servants with him. And the donkey saw the angel of Yahweh standing in the road with his sword drawn in his hand. So it kind of does look confusing. He told him he could go if they came calling. And then he goes and now he's telling him that he meets this angel with a sword drawn in the middle of the road. And of course he has all these problems with the donkey. He gets mad. I look at this a couple of different ways, and I've got to share this with you. We do a lot of counseling, and I have men come in, and I said, "What's happened?" "Well, I went and did this, and she got all mad about it." "Well, did she say you could do it?" "Well, when I first asked her, she said no." And then I kept asking her, "So, well, then go do it." And so I did, and now she's mad. I don't understand. One of the things people in the world can't understand is how Yahweh works. He did not make us robots. He will not overrule your desire. He will allow you to walk in your desire and see the effects of it. Okay? And so that's part of what's going on here. Your wife, by the way, gentlemen, will do the same thing. If you insist on doing something, then go do it. And you're going to have to deal with me when you get back. So it's sort of part of the same picture. It's like, but there's more to it. There's more to it. That's not the only thing. The thing is Balaam really focused on what Yahweh wants, or is he focused on what he wants? And by the way, in our relationships with each other, it's kind of the same way too, isn't it? If we're focused on what we want, the relationship doesn't go so well, right? If we don't look at what the other person wants in a relationship. So we can be, and the other thing too is like, the donkey sees this thing, and this guy's, you know the story. He runs into him 3 different times, he runs him into the wall, scrapes his foot, and goes off the road, and Balaam is freaking out. He's a prophet, right? Supposedly. Says he is. Here's Yahweh's voice. Why did the donkey see the angel of the Lord with a sword, and he can't see him? Not a very... what is it? We have a blind prophet, a spiritually blind prophet here, because he's being blinded from his own heart, because of what's in his heart. His heart is about what he wants to do, okay? And our heart's the same way. It will blind us if I want to do this, I know what the Word says, and I'm going to try to force this to fit in the Word because I want to do something. And in that process of forcing things to operate our way, there's spiritual blindness. Okay? And so we wonder why we end up in this goofy place, where like Balaam here, whose donkey at this point, verse 27, he's done run off the road, he's done skinned his foot, and finally the donkey's just like, I ain't going any further. And he just like lays down because it's a narrow path. It talks about between 2 vineyards, that's 2 stone walls. There's nowhere to go. If I can't get by this guy, he's standing here with a sword, the donkey's just like, and so the donkey lays down under Balaam, and he just freaks out, and he strikes the donkey with his staff. And Yahweh opens the mouth of the donkey. Balaam, what have I done to you? It's like, why have you hit me these 3 times? I'm fascinated that the next verse, because Balaam don't miss a beat. It's amazing what anger will do. It'll make you stand there and talk to an ass, is what it'll do. Balaam says to the donkey, because you made a fool out of me. It's like, dude, you're making a fool out of yourself right now. Because if I had a sword, I'd kill you. Like, interesting choice of words, Balaam, because there's an angel standing there ready to kill you. But what's interesting about this is when you look at the sentence structure, and this is from Keel and Delitzsch, sorry. They talk about here toward the bottom that when you look at, and this is a very long explanation, it's like 3 pages long because they're really into this. But they say if you look at the sentence structure, that God is not upset by the fact that he went, but by his behavior on the journey, by his attitude on the journey, by his reasoning, by his heart is what it comes down to, which has been the problem from the beginning. So the problem is not that he physically went, it's that it's a spiritual problem is really what it is. So it said there's a problem here, Balaam, There's a spiritual problem with your purpose. Why are you going? What kind of mindset, what kind of attitude, what kind of purpose are you going with? And so what is he motivated by? He's motivated by money, power. He's going to see the king, and his king, I will put riches on you. I'll make you famous. That sounds like the devil, And it's like, come to Hollywood, I'll make you famous. I'll make you rich. Like, yeah, go destroy your life. But that's what... And it's interesting because 10 verses later, the Bible actually confirms that. Let's take a look. Look at this. That was 22. That was verse 22, verse 32. Yahweh's angel says to him, I'm sorry, this was this after this one. Look what it says here. He says, why did you strike him? He says, your way is perverse before me. Not because you're going, your way. The way you're doing this is perverse, okay? It's perverted, okay? And then look, he says he's not there to prohibit him from going, but to warn him of the destruction towards which he's going because of the attitude that he's going with, right? I'm still looking for that verse. I think I moved it. It's in here somewhere. We'll find it. 2 Peter comments on it. It says false prophets, come, false teachers, secretly bringing destructive heresies, even denying the master who brought them, bringing upon themselves swift destruction. So it's easy for us to fall into a false doctrine. The internet really has got more distortion than it has truth. Yet that's where most people go today for spiritual understanding. Where they go? They go to the Word. Let me just pick up a Bible. No. What is truth? Like you're going to find it that way, right? And really what happens if what pops up on the screen they don't like, they just hit the back button and pick another one. And keep hitting the back button until they find, I can kind of go along with that. But have you found truth? No, you just found something that satisfied your own heart, satisfied your own greed. You find something that would make Balaam happy. It says that many of these people follow sensuality, and because of what we do sometimes, in the name of truth, because of how we act, because of our attitude, because of how we go along the way, that way, notice it says the way of truth, becomes blasphemy. So if we're out there as believers and bonking people over the head and being toward terrorists or, not doing it with the right spirit, with the right attitude, then the whole way of truth becomes blasphemy because of what we're doing. So there's a tremendous responsibility on us. It says, your way has become perverse before me, Balaam. Then Balaam says to the angel, I have sinned. I didn't know you stood there. If it is evil in your sight, I will turn back. So see, he's still thinking that, okay, maybe I shouldn't have gone. Right? Okay, well, if this is an evil thing, if me going is evil, I'll turn around. And he said, no, don't turn around. So we see right there that it's not the going that's the problem. It's what comes out of the mouth of a man that defiles him. Yes. Right? What Yeshua says. And he said, you will speak only what I tell you. Go ahead and go. But you be careful what comes out of your mouth because you're representing Yahweh now. Okay? And by the way, aren't we? Aren't we out there telling people we speak the name, we got the word, we got the truth. Be careful what comes out of your mouth. We're going to end up just like this guy if we don't. Many will follow immoral ways, and as a result, the way of truth will be blasphemed. So he's confirming that. In 2 Peter, actually, in 22nd Peter, interestingly enough here, this is a special Bible. No, it's just right down the way a little bit. Having a heart trained in greed, they're children of cursing. So, and that can have a dual meaning, really. Are curses coming out of our mouth? Like, are we speaking curses? Are we actually cursing? Are we actually using foul language? If we are, then the way of truth is being blasphemed. If we're speaking curses into the world, then the way of truth is being blasphemed. That's what this is about. They have followed the ways of Balaam. So we see what he was doing. It was what he was saying. So Peter's confirming here is what he's saying. And he also loved the gain. He wanted the money. He wanted the fame. And he's being a big shot. And he's talking stuff out of his mouth. Okay? And so really he's just confirming that really what this is about is Balaam is on a mission. He's supposed to be on a mission from God, and he's on a mission for Balaam. It's about him. And so but the world, what's interesting is the world trains us, the enemy operating in the world tells us that that's what we want to do. Oh, it's all about you. It's about your flesh. Go, it's all about you. It's all about you. It's all about you. Since when did it get to be about us? It's never been about us. Never. If we make it about him, that's when it works. If you really want it to be about you, if you really want it to work for you, make it about him. That's when it works. Because he's on our side. He's not against us. He's for us. And so if we step into that relationship where we're operating on his side, it will work for us. He put you here for a reason. He put you right here for a reason. Make it work. Okay? Make it work. Balaam saw that it pleased Yahweh to bless Israel. It's like, sometimes we have to wake up. He saw that it pleased Yahweh to bless Israel, and he didn't go his other time to seek spells. He turned his face toward the wilderness. Where was he looking before that? It doesn't say. But he wasn't looking at Israel. He wasn't looking at the people of Israel. He was looking probably more about self and toward the kings and toward the bling and toward the money and toward the fame. Our whole picture changes when we turn and see things the way God sees them. The politically correct, liberal, demonic world today is not happy with Israel. They're not happy with the God of Israel. And that's why they hate Israel. It's got nothing to do with Israel. They hate God. That's what it's really about. They hate Yahweh. Okay? And so that just translates. And so when we find our place in the world, we got to realize you're in a place that basically, when we're operating with the world, we're in a place that hates Israel. They hate the God of Israel. And we're trying to work with them. That gets very difficult. And pretty soon, don't be surprised if you hear it's like, who are these people? Who are these men you're hanging with? Who are these people? What are you doing here? What are you doing here? And once again, it's not that he doesn't know. It's just that we haven't recognized the path that we're on. And we have to turn our face away from the bling and back toward the wilderness. And when we turn back toward the wilderness, that's when we see Israel. That's when we join Israel. What happened? Balaam turned his face toward the wilderness, and he lifted up his eyes, and he saw Israel camping by its tribes. Okay? And the Spirit of God was on him. I know there was no Spirit of God before Acts chapter 2, but that's another sermon. Sorry, just had to go there. When we look and we see, and there's a lot of stuff right here. It's like Israel is a people of God. God never commanded these tribes to be one tribe. It's important that we have congregations because people are in different places. It's important that we have tribes because people are in different places to allow them to operate. There's people that maybe couldn't take this word today. I think this one's a pretty easy one. But some days it's more difficult. It's more strong, And so it's just he knows where people are, and he brings people where they are. He lifts up his eyes, and when we lift our eyes and look towards Israel, physically and spiritually, he commands us to pray towards Jerusalem, right? But when we do that physically and spiritually, then the Spirit of God, we're looking where His. Think about it. He says his eyes are always on Israel. They're always there. So why are we looking a different way? Why are we worried about Iraq and Iran and all, California, whatever, Mexico? Why are we looking at Him? All the rest of it's distraction. We look toward the wilderness, and that's where you're going to find His Spirit, because that's where He takes people, is in the wilderness. When we need bringing back to Him, you will find yourself in the wilderness. And most of the people that I've run into have a very strong faith have spent some time in the wilderness. And it wasn't fun. Israel will spend 40 years in the wilderness, because when they were right there at the door, they refused to step through it. He said, okay, I'm going to take you there, but you're not ready to go. And so, if you can do it the first time, because it's not fun in the wilderness. But if you find yourself in the wilderness, embrace it. God hasn't given up on you. He knows what you can become. You can become Israel. You can become the people that when they come back to the border the next time, they don't even slow down. It's got that way. Amen? Amen.